Welcome, friends, to the Line of Fire. May I quote to you the words of Isaiah 62, where the Lord, speaking through the prophet, says, "For Zion's sake, for the sake of Jerusalem, I will not be silent." All this month, we are focusing on the Jewish roots of the faith. We are focusing on why Israel's salvation should matter to every single follower of Jesus, Yeshua. And we are here on the Line of Fire broadcast to infuse you with faith, with truth, with courage, to help you stand strong on the front lines. Every one of us, like it or not, we're in a war, we're in a battle, we are in the line of fire, but we stand together in faith and confidence, knowing that God's purposes will stand, knowing that in the midst of the chaos of this world, God is working out his purposes. I would love to encourage you, not just on the radio, not just on this broadcast, but I'd love to encourage you through our monthly Frontline newsletter. And I'd love to encourage you every single week with cutting-edge articles that are dealing with the world around us and helping you have information and material to equip you, empower you so you can engage on the front line. So be sure that you're signed up to get our Frontline newsletter and our weekly updates. Go to thelineoffire.org. If you're not getting our emails, you want to sign up today. And we want to put you in our welcome program, talk about my testimony from LSD to PhD, talk about the 3 R's of our ministry: revival in the church, gospel-based moral and cultural revolution in society, and the redemption of Israel, the Jewish people. And we are going to look a little bit more today at the subject of Jew hatred, anti-Semitism. And I want to go from the early church up until today. And again, friends, put your seatbelts on, because this is going to be heavy stuff. It's the kind of stuff we cannot avoid. A few years ago, I had on my show a well-known Catholic anti-Semite. There are Protestant anti-Semites, Catholic anti-Semites, atheist anti-Semites, Muslim anti-Semites. By anti-Semite, we mean a Jew hater or someone who has demonized the Jewish people as a people. And I warned this scholar that his rhetoric could lead to violence. I warned him that his words could provoke people, especially unstable people, or feed into their psyche to do something horrible. It wasn't that long after the interview that a young man, a Protestant young man, tried to carry out a massacre at a synagogue in Passover in California. Thankfully, was cut short in his diabolical attempt, but his manifesto said it all. And I'm going to read some quotes from it to you. And no, he alone is responsible for what he did. But there's no question that the same type of rhetoric, the same type of attitude is what fueled his actions. So let's go from the early church until today. Antioch, 386, John Chrysostom. Indeed, the synagogue is less deserving of honor than any inn. It is not merely a lodging place for robbers and cheats, but also for demons. This is true not only of the synagogues, but also of the souls of the Jews. Again, John Chrysostom, one of the greatest early church leaders, 4th century, and known as Chrysostom after his death, because that meant golden mouth. He was such a powerful preacher. He said, "You see that demons dwell in their souls, and that these demons are more dangerous than the ones of old. And this is very reasonable. In the old days, the Jews acted impiously toward the prophets. Now they outrage the master of the prophets. Tell me this, do you not shudder to come into the same place with men possessed, who have so many unclean spirits, who have been reared amid slaughter and bloodshed? Must you share a greeting with them and exchange or bear a word?" Chrysostom said this, "When brute animals feed from a full manger, they grow plump and become more obstinate and hard to hold in check. They endure neither the yoke, the reins, nor the hand of the charioteer. Just so the Jewish people were driven by their drunkenness and plumpness to the ultimate evil. They kicked about, they failed to accept the yoke of Christ, nor did they pull the plow of his teaching. Although such beasts are unfit for work, they are fit for killing." This is what John Chrysostom wrote and preached in 386. And this is what happened to the Jews. While they were making themselves unfit for work, they grew fit for slaughter. This is why Christ said, "But as for these my enemies who did not want me to be king over them, bring them here and slay them." Friends, is it any wonder that Adolf Hitler and the Nazis republished the sermons of Chrysostom, his hateful sermons, the infamous 7 sermons against the Jews. There's actually an 8th, but we always talk about the 7 sermons against the Jews. Let me read this again. Although such beasts are unfit for work, they are fit for killing. And this is what happened to the Jews. While they were making themselves unfit for work, they grew fit for slaughter. This is why Christ said, as for these my enemies who did not want me to be king over them, bring them here and slay them. What about the Crusades in 1096 as they began? Listen to what Susan Jacoby relates. Pope Urban II did not tell crusaders to murder Jews, but that is what happened when at least 100,000 knights, vassals, and serfs, unmoored from ordinary social restraints, but bearing the standard of the cross, set off to crush what they considered a perfidious Muslim enemy in a faraway land. Why not practice on that older group of accused perfidy, of unbelief, the Jews? In other words, you're going to go do war against the Muslim infidels who've taken over the Holy Land and are barring Christians from entry and things like that. You're going to go to war against the Muslim unbelievers. Why not practice on the Jewish unbelievers? Albert of Aix, a Christian born in the late 11th century, describes atrocities in Mainz, another stop on the Crusaders' rampage through the Rhineland, by a band headed by one Count Emico. Again, there is a bishop who initially promises the Jews protection for what Albert describes as an incredible amount of money. But Emico and his Christian soldiers broke into the hall where the Jews were held. This was during the Crusades, beginning 1096. Quote, breaking the bolts and doors, they killed the Jews, about 700 in number, who in vain resisted the force and attack of so many thousands. They killed the women also, and with their swords pierced tender children of whatever age and sex. This is why in Jewish evangelism, friends, we don't use the term gospel crusade, because crusade is a dirty word in Jewish history. And then, of course, the words of Martin Luther in 1543. We've shared some of this previously, but to say it again, this was his counsel to the German princes. First, to set fire to their synagogues or schools. Second, I advise that their houses also be razed and destroyed. Instead, they might be lodged under a roof or in a barn like the gypsies. Third, I advise that all their prayer books and Talmudic writings in which such idolatry, lies, cursing, and blasphemy are taught be taken from them. Fourth, I advise that their rabbis be forbidden to teach henceforth on pain of loss of life and limb. Fifth, I advise that safe conduct on the highways be abolished completely for the Jews. Sixth, I advise that usury, so charging interest, be prohibited to them, and that all cash and treasure of silver and gold be taken from them and put aside for safekeeping. Seventh, I recommend putting a flail, an axe, a hoe, a spade, a distaff, or a spindle into the hands of young, strong Jews and Jewesses and letting them earn their bread in the sweat of their brow. It almost sounds like a master plan for the concentration camps. This is Martin Luther. The one thing he didn't call was for the complete extermination of the Jews, but he called for most things leading up to that. So whether you're Orthodox, Russian Orthodox, Greek Orthodox, in which case Chrysostom would be venerated, whether you're Catholic, in which case the Catholic Church and the Pope would be your guide, if you're Protestant, in which case you venerate Luther, in any case, there's blood on the hands of these leaders. There is Jew hatred in these traditions that must be acknowledged. It's poisonous, but it's there. You can turn your heads from it. You can get angry. You can turn off the radio, but it's true. It's true. October 2014. Let's skip ahead. Tex Mars, now deceased, a best-selling evangelical author and a Christian radio host, reprints Luther's anti-Jewish book concerning the Jews and their lives, from which I just quoted. Tex Mars, an evangelical Christian, a popular evangelical Christian, who would hold to the same salvation that we would in terms of salvation through the blood of Jesus, who believed the same Orthodox doctrine about the nature of God and the inspiration of Scripture, who would stand with us in many moral and cultural issues. He was a blatant anti-Semite. And Tex Mars reprints Luther's book concerning the Jews and their lives from 1543. Writing an enthusiastic foreword, Martin Luther, Mars explains, one of the greatest champions of the Christian faith ever to live, wrote this amazing book to warn Christians of the darkness of the Jewish religion. Indeed, he describes on the Jews and their lies as Luther's magnificent defense of Jesus the Messiah and his expose of the unfounded lies and accusations of the rabbis. 2014, friends. How about this? Poway, California, April 27th, 2019. John T. Ernest, just 19 years old, marches into an Orthodox Jewish synagogue in Poway, California, and opens fire, killing 1 and wounding 3 before his gun locks up. Among the injured are an 8-year-old girl and the rabbi who lost a finger on one hand. According to a court affidavit, Ernest told the 9/11 emergency line dispatcher, "I just shot up a synagogue because Jewish people are destroying the white race." Isn't that extraordinary that when you have Black Hebrew Israelite anti-Semitism, the Jews are hated because most American Jews, Ashkenazi Jews, are white. The Jews are hated because they're not really Jews because they're white. Here's an anti-Semite wanting to kill white Jews because they're trying to destroy the white race. Can you see how demonic this is? And this is what Ernest wrote in his manifesto. Tell me if this does not sound beautiful at the beginning. I did not choose to be a Christian. The Father chose me. The Son saved me. And the Spirit keeps me. Why me? I do not know. Sounds just like a good Presbyterian, Calvinist, Reformed Christian, right? But as a Christian, he has a responsibility. Quote, "There is no love without hatred. You cannot love God if you do not hate Satan. You cannot love righteousness if you do not also hate sin. You cannot love your own race if you do not hate those who wish to destroy it. Love and hate are two sides of the same coin." All right, I'm going to get right back to this manifesto on the other side of the break.
I'm Paul Burnett, a board-certified doctor of holistic health. I have never met anyone deficient in caffeine or sugar, but I have met many people deficient in energy-supporting vitamin B12. Unlike other oral B12 supplements, Alfred Libby's Slow Dissolve Super B12 is fast-acting because the formula is scientifically developed to dissolve under the tongue, bypassing the digestive process, making it immediately available for use in the body. Alfred Libby's Slow Dissolve Super B12 is also formulated with other natural energy-supporting ingredients, such as folate, ginseng root, and other natural ingredients. You deserve to live with greater energy and mental clarity, and now, like millions of others, you can with Alfred Libby's Slow Dissolve Super B12, sold only by your wellness partner, Trivita.
To order Alfred Libby's B12 for yourself, call 1-800-771-5584 or online at Trivita.com. Order today and use promo code BROWN25 to receive 25% off your order. As a new customer, 100% of your order proceeds from your first order will go to support the Line of Fire radio broadcast. Call 1-800-771-5584, 1-800-771-5584, or online at Trivita.com.
Thanks for joining us on the Line of Fire as we continue to focus this week and all of this month on why the salvation of Israel should matter to you, why anti-Semitism, Jew hatred is such a demonic phenomenon, why the gospel is to the Jew first. If you missed any of the previous broadcasts, the material is also found in my book, Our Hands Are Stained with Blood, the tragic story of the church and the Jewish people, and also supplemented by Christian anti-Semitism, confronting the lies in today's church. We'll tell you about these books again at the end of the broadcast. John Ernest, Poway synagogue shooting right outside of San Diego, 2019, said this in his manifesto. Christian young man, according to everything else that he wrote. In fact, doing what he's doing, seeking to slaughter Jews because he is a Christian. He wrote this: "It is unlawful and cowardly to stand on the sidelines as the European people are genocided," so he wrote it, "around you. I did not want to have to kill Jews, but they have given us no other option." And he claims this: "My God does not take kindly to the destruction of his creation, especially one of the most beautiful, intelligent, and innovative races that he has created. least of all at the hands of one of the most ugly, sinful, deceitful, cursed, and corrupt. So he's speaking about the Jews destroying whites of European origin. September 29th, 2019, a man named Robert posted this comment on my YouTube channel with reference to the Poway synagogue shooting. Quote, "It is so shocking that your people pulled another false flag shooting and made sure the perp was a violent Christian. We know how evil you are, Brown." So this is someone demented enough to think that this was something carried out by Jews and then framing a Christian to look bad for this. And this is, you talk about satanic deception. Can you illustrate it any better than that? October 2nd, 2019, a woman named Maria posted this comment on our YouTube channel. "Dr. Brown, I hope you are humble enough to hear this video to the end because I think you really need it." And then her comment was linked to a 6.5-hour video compilation containing a narration of all of John Chrysostom's sermons against the Jews. So she's saying, Dr. Brown, you really need to hear what he said because he nailed it. He understood how evil the Jews were, and the Jews just deserved slaughter. They were just fit to be killed. And by the way, these are samples. These are samples. This is like literally taking a tiny little cup of water out of the ocean. This is everywhere online. And sentiments like this are found all over the place. Social media has simply brought to the surface what's been in people's hearts and minds for centuries. Let me give you some examples. So Our Hands Are Stained with Blood came out in 1992, the original edition updated in 2019, followed by Christian Anti-Semitism in 2020. Why did I need to update Our Hands Are Stained with Blood? Why did I need to put out another companion book to it? Well, let me give you some examples. Catholic scholar E. Michael Jones. We had a civil dialogue on my radio show a few years ago. E. Michael Jones. Here are some of his books, titles of some of his books. The Jews and Moral Subversion, The Catholic Church and the Jews, Catholics and the Jew Taboo, Jewish Fables, Darwinism, Materialism, and Other Jewish Fables, Jewish Privilege, Shylock's Eyes and Rams, Economics and Morality, The Jewish Revolutionary Spirit and Its Impact on World History. This is 1,200 pages. I got that book not realizing it was written by an anti-Semite. I got that book thinking that it would have some insights, positive insights into Jewish history. It was quite the opposite. According to the ADL and the tradition of conspiracy theorists, Jones credits Jews with orchestrating occurrences as varied and disconnected from the Jewish experience as the Protestant Reformation and the French Revolution. He also blames Jews for Bolshevism, Freemasonry, and an alleged contemporary, quote, Jewish takeover of American culture. Jones argues that mass killings of Jews throughout history have been understandable reactions to Jewish beliefs and behavior. He goes as far as to justify Eastern European pogroms and even the Nazi Holocaust on these grounds, as he wrote in the 2003 Culture Wars article, quote, "The Nazi attempt to exterminate the Jews was a reaction to the Jewish messianism in the form of Bolshevism, every bit as much as the Khmelnytsky pogroms flowed from the excesses of the Jewish tax farmers in the Ukraine." In other words, when the Jews are slaughtered in mass, when hundreds of thousands or millions are wiped out, it's just a natural reaction to the bad behavior of the Jews. It's just a natural thing. It's a right response to the monstrous behavior of the Jews. This is what a respected Catholic scholar has to say. Respected in his circles. Yes, they're fringe within Catholicism. They don't represent mainstream Catholicism, but he has quite a large following, Catholic and Protestant. And it fuels a lot. His ideology, his scholarship fuels a lot of the anti-Semitism in many of these pseudo-Christian circles, Protestant and Catholic. It's a reality, friends. That's why we've been sounding the alarm. And you see the fruit of it everywhere. For people said, come on, Dr. Brown, what are you talking about? What are you getting all worked up? Here it is in our society, infecting the world in which we live. I saw a recent video in the last year or two from Dr. Jones where he was talking about the Jews. They were so filthy. They'd never really seen a shower. And that's why I thought it was gas. It was just showers. They weren't familiar with it. Suddenly, these people, meaning the Jewish people, are let loose. People like Magnus Hirschfeld are let loose, and suddenly the people, this is Jones, meaning the German people are resentful. They don't want the corruption of their morals, and they turn to someone like Hitler because he said it would straighten them out. This could have been stopped earlier. So Magnus Hirschfeld, a radical sexologist with some perverse ideas, Jewish. So it's like the German people are just reacting to all the Jewish perversion. They're looking for Hitler as someone to cleanse Germany of these miserable Jews. He says this, the great uncle of Pope Benedict wrote a book, George Ratzinger. He said if the church doesn't step in and defend the people by enforcing the laws that protect the moral order, the German people are going to look for a leader. Well, guess what? The German people word for leader is it's Führer. They found their leader. That is the type of reaction we want to prevent here in America. And the way we prevent this is by open dialogue where we are able to criticize the people who have subjected us to this reign of pornographic terror. So porn in America, that's the responsibility of Jews. Even though the founders of the sexual revolution, Albert Kinsey and Hugh Hefner, were from Christian families and were not Jews at all, obviously not Christians, but Jews are responsible for porn in America. And if we can't talk about this honestly, then Americans are going to look to somebody like a Hitler to wipe out the Jews. This is the madness coming from the pen of Michael Jones. He goes so far as to justify Eastern European pogroms and even the Nazi Holocaust on these grounds. As he wrote, quoted that already. All right, went in the wrong order in my slides here. Tex Morris, popular evangelical Christian. Here are some of his books. Conspiracy of the Six-Pointed Star, Eye-Opening Revelations and Forbidden Knowledge about Israel, the Jews, Zionism, and the Rothschilds. DNA Science and the Jewish Bloodline. Holy Serpent of the Jews, the rabbi's secret plan for Satan to crush their enemies and vault the Jews to global dominion. Blood Covenant with Destiny, the Babylonian Talmud, the Jewish Kabbalah, and the power of prophecy. And this is what Tex Morris says. Of all the diseased schools of racial supremacism, I am convinced that the Jewish specimen is the most evil and most threatening to the lives, bodies, and eternal destinies of humankind. Zionism has existed as a satanic ideological force in opposition to all things good and even to life itself for 3,000 years. Zionism and its accompanying religious disease, Judaism, are the champions of all time in terms of the total number of innocent men, women, and children being imprisoned, in concentration camps, beaten, bludgeoned, raped, robbed, humiliated, and unmercifully slaughtered. Tex Morris said the ultimate goal of the Jews is the annihilation of almost every Gentile man, woman, and child in the establishment of a satanic, Jewish-led global dictatorship, the Jewish utopia, encompassing the planet. This goal is expressed by the Jews in their most sacred books, the Babylonian Talmud and the Kabbalah, and on he goes. Friends, every one of these quotes that I read is in these two books, Our Hands Are Stained with Blood and Christian Anti-Semitism. As we see the rise of anti-Semitism worldwide, as we see it in our campuses all over America, as we see it in nation around the world, as we see it in monstrously evil ways that could easily lead sentiments to turn in country after country to the expulsion of Jews or physical attacks on Jews or attempts to exterminate Jews, you understand why we are sounding the alarm and why we must get educated. These books are so essential to get educated, to understand, and then to know how to pray and how to believe and why there is such a battle for the souls of Jewish people. This is Dr. Michael Brown. Thanks so much for tuning in. Just a reminder that we are listener-supported. If we have been a blessing to you, if you're being enriched in the word and prayer in your own walk with God through this broadcast, then stand with us so that we can reach many, many more and bless many, many more. Together, friends, we're making a difference. So go to thelineoffire.org, thelineoffire.org, and click donate.